Hello, everyone. This is Scott Smith, and welcome back to another Saturday service. I'm sorry I wasn't here last week. I've gone through a series of events in my life, and I find myself in a different place. So, the start of this video is a little bit of an update on me and what I've been doing, and then onto the reading. I'm using a little bit of new technology and um, working with Zoom this time rather than my phone, so the video quality is probably a little less until I get things set up in my space to make a proper recording the way that I like. I'm still sticking to the commitment. So, um, where am I at? So I'm no longer in Los Angeles. I am in Northern California they say it's the Bay Area, but I grew up here. I say it's the North Bay Area, which is the Tucson, Fairfield, Vallejo, Vacaville, that area. So I'm sort of in that area of the world at the moment. And the reason I'm here is because we had a family emergency, and I drove up in August, and my dad had a stroke, and then he passed away. So I've been up here sort of reorienting my life, taking care of business, handling his affairs, and taking care of some other things too. You know, if you haven't had someone very close to you die to which you are intimately connected, there are a lot of things that you don't know that come up. And so I've been dealing with a lot of those hidden figures and different situations that I wasn't aware of, and just making sure that everything transitions very smoothly for my family and my father's affairs. This became an opportunity um, in recognizing that I'm going to be here for a while to take care of things and to help out family. And this is really where I needed to be. Um, all of the readings before, all of that tower and star stuff really made sense to me. This is a very interesting thing about doing readings is that who do I want to quote here? I want to quote maybe maybe Sanea Roman when she did some of her work that some of the things that we get in readings are very much through the lens of us and our experience. And I think it was in her book, Opening to Channel, where she was talking about channeling, which is basically overshadowing. Um, that the more we learn and the more we know, the more material we have for those channels to speak with us, so that we become more articulate the more we know. So I feel like this move, this time, and everything that sort of happened to me has put me in a very unique position to take care of my family, to be present for these sorts of things, and to understand that the message that's been coming through for kind of the collective energy also has meaning for me personally. And while I do my best and I do have my practices to make sure that I'm not speaking from my personal experience and so therefore projecting or reflecting very much because there's always a little bit of us in what we do. I do recognize that those messages in the last month, 2 months, were very appropriate for me as well. So I was very interesting for me to see how that tower and star energy played out and emerged for other people, um, as well as myself. So I took some notes today, and if you are a subscriber, that means a free subscriber also on Patreon, you will get the transcripts from this video and the video itself. And that will all be on the patreon.com/Scott K. Smith. Otherwise, you get the video on YouTube or wherever it is that you're watching this. So a quote came to me as I was preparing for this reading today, which was from the Fellowship of the Ring, and that was with Galadriel as she was speaking to Sam. And she says, some things are meant to be, some things never were, and some things that yet maybe, yet some things pass, some things last, and the world changes them, like the river flowing. But the old stories, the stars, go on forever. Life is very transient. Things happen, things move, we move with it. Uh, Throughout the last couple of months, one of the quotes that stuck to me, and I'm really not sure where I got it from, is part of our life is really about free choice, a large portion of it, we'll say 80%. And then there's a portion of it which is not about free choice. It's not about our will because we are being moved, we are being directed, we are being assisted, right? Or knocked off course. It depends. But these things happen and they are out of our control as far as our choice to make them. But the choices we make within those moments when we have been guided or knocked are ours to make. And when we get the tower in a reading, the tower, for me, when I get it, the whole reading will then reorient on the tower because that's a very significant card which says something was broken, something ended, some house that you built has been torn down, and another one, uh, another journey is underway. If it's in the past, it can be referencing that. If it's in the present, it's talking about a current situation. Or if it's in the future, it could be talking about a breakdown or transformation of some sort. And I don't necessarily mean that metaphysical. As I saw play out in my life, things happen physically. These things are literal changes when we get the tower. And it's an obelisk in certain ways. It is a thick energy that has that Aquarian, excuse me, Uranian kind of lightning bolt capacity to it. In the medieval Feathers Tarot, there's actually two tarot cards for the tower. There's the lightning strike and the tower. I like that distinction. But it is to say, when we pull the tower, it is an indicator that things, when we see the tower come up for the collective or for ourselves personally, or both, it means that the way things were are no more, as the death card falls out of the deck. And uh, there is destruction in that has happened, is happening, or will happening, and that the form that things have been in is no longer suitable. It's not sufficient. It doesn't work. That house doesn't work anymore. This was the house that Jack built, and now we're moving on. Like, it's become something else. We're going to pull some cards here. Um, so when we see the tower, what we're often looking at is that sort of breakdown of things. And that's just a reminder of the last few weeks of things. Then we have the star. The star was also a message that came through a lot in what we were doing. This represents the light of hope. This represents healing. This is our guiding forces. It is that water bearer that reminds us after the tower that we're building something new, that we're building into or moving towards a new direction, being guided towards a new direction. And the star specifically says to not try to recreate what was. So if the house has fallen, don't try to build the same house again. The star asks us to look at that Aquarian within us, that rebel within us, this dreamer within us in certain ways, to say, what's the new idea, right? This new idea, these cards here, this new idea is um, what's guiding us forward, this new model, this new way of doing things, this new approach, right? Who are we in this new story that's starting to emerge? We may not know the story yet, but we have inkling that we can follow. Let me tell you something from my own experience. And I'm not saying that fear is a bad thing, because I think that that is a kind of overused and um, it's just become very popularized to say, like, fear is bad and love is good. For me, when I see fear in myself, in my body, I am seeing something that's referencing maybe my past, something that has happened to me before that I'm afraid will happen again because it's embedded in me. sometimes that fear, I can't reference it in my own life. I can't say it's because, oh, I fell and this fear happened. Sometimes that fear is ancestral. Fear is an ancestral response. It isn't a good ancestral response at its core because it's telling us to get out of the way. It's telling us to be mindful when we step forward. It's telling us to that something could happen because we know that there is something that has occurred that has caused harm. Fear informs us in this way. We're millions, hundreds of millions of years of evolution. We have a lot that's built into us. Ancestors are not just people. Ancestors are the plants, are the animals, are the all the places that we come from, that we share in our entire evolution. There's a lot built into us that we don't know and understand, and it speaks to us in certain things through desire, right? Through our senses, and through fear. So fear is a very good thing. It's a bad thing when it controls us. It's a bad thing when we don't understand that it is the voice of awareness that's asking us to become aware of a certain thing, and we instead see it as a voice of guidance in all things, and fear then derails our life. So fear is not a bad thing, right? But we start to when we start to create something new and we want to really draw on what our next step is. We want to ask spirit. We want to ask our highest self. We want to touch into that part of us that is the next thing that we're going to expand into. When we do that, I generally believe that we should be looking at the guiding voices that have our greatest health and well being in mind. So, what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be all love and light, right? Because that's kind of also a myth. It does mean that it's going to point out things which may be uncomfortable that are actually for our growth and for that expansiveness that we're going to move into. My friend Koenig, who watches this, hello Koenig, um, says to follow the yes, and I have been holding that little gem with me, right? To follow the yes. And I'm not sure where you got that from, Koenig, but I really love it. But it is in line with what I'm speaking of. When I teach channeling, when I teach talking to spirits and those sorts of things, and I say, I'd like for you to first connect with a guide that has this best intention for you in mind always. Once we have established that connection, then we start to create and sort of go through our other spirit guides because we know we have a point person which is able and is there and in this job to really be there for us and what we truly need for our health and well-being. So it's not as simple of is it a message or love and fear, right? But also when we're talking about spiritual things, sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it is about what is the direction that is affirming towards us. I think this is generally true of people as it is of spirits because spirits in a lot of ways were people too. And because I'm an animist, I think all people have personhood. So everything's a spirit, everything has personhood. So they're all people, right? So if what you're talking to, if the guidance that you're getting from a person, a friend, a candidate, or a spirit guide, or spirit of a place, is this awful, dire, horrible, negative, fear, it's going to be dangerous, they're going to get you, you're probably listening to the wrong source. Because this is usually an indicator not of your health and well being, right? But of a fear of a potential that may or may not happen. Probably will not happen, right? I'm not saying it wouldn't, but probably. What is the joy that we should be listening to when we're talking about the star, right? If we've had the tower, which is where fear comes in, this house is burning down, get out of it, right? That's fear. That was my poor Jennifer McCarthy impression. Um, it's burning down, get out, right? So you're past that, right? So you're at the star. You're looking for what helps you grow. You're looking what brings you forward. You're looking for what takes you to the place where you see and are cultivating hope and newness and that yes that you're looking for, where you're moving into expansiveness. This is where we really have to find joy, because joy is a strategy. Joy is a way forward. Joy is a path that we can walk along. It doesn't make it rosy, right? It doesn't make everything easy, but it does say, I'm going to handle it with a laugh. I'm going to handle it with my humor intact. I'm going to handle it with playfulness or with generosity and openness to intimacy with those who support me and in the spirit of supporting others. Joy is expansive, fear is not. So if the message is fear, danger, gonna get you, horrible, all of those sorts of things, that's not expansion. That's not the star. That's not the next paradigm. That's not the way forward. It isn't, because it's referencing the path. That's what fear does, is reference the path. It's not helpful. It's not for you. An indicator of our next step forward, an indicator of where we're going is joy, is following joy, is hope, is the star, is healing, is rest, resting the system, resting the mind, is support, is loving support, is nurturing. It's those sorts of things when we start to talk about the star. And I got to tell you, I'm really seeing that in my life right now. The third thing that I wanted to mention right now that I think is a great current for us to tap into is the fact that it's in the northern hemisphere. I now have a few friends who are in the southern hemisphere, so we can compare notes about that, and I'd love to hear it if you'd like to include anything in the comments. But we have the autumn equinox. They would have the spring equinox, but the autumn equinox, and this is equinox. This is equal, right? So it's equal day and night. So happy autumn equinox. And as we celebrate in the temple, Mabon, not Mabon, because we're talking about the modern pagan reconstructed holiday, not the Welsh figure. Um, and and this is a time when it is equal light and dark, and it's about the balance shifting toward the dark tide and the death tide as we move towards Samhain, right? Kind of ancestral time. This is now we've had our fullness of light and life energies. These have faded. We're at equality in these energies. And now we're moving into that dark tide. So this always to me is, we're moving towards those seasons of light where people bring the light inside, the candles, the Christmas lights, the Yule log, whatever it is that, the Hanukkah candles, whatever it is that you do as we move towards these holidays, right? Whatever they are, I love them all. So good for you. Do them all, in fact, um, if you feel so inclined. But there's nothing wrong with celebrating, right? Find a way you can expand into those things if it fits you. But that we're generating these things within ourselves, really, because ancestrally in the north or wherever the season where it's a time when it moves towards that dark times, we would have been cultivating those inner lights in our homes or our places that we lived. That is not just a literal thing, because the Wheel of the Year is not just a literal thing. It is a metaphysical thing. It has a metaphor. It has meaning, as spiritual meaning, and our spirituality is the contents of our inner world as we come to know ourselves initially, eventually express them outwards, but it represents the light within ourselves. So when we see the autumn equinox, we see this movement of light into dark. We're talking about the descent to this below the surface underworld energy, and so we move into those underworld energies. In the Temple of Witchcraft, that's how we do it. And if you're very interested in that, there is an online class for that by Christopher Pensack. It's called The Wheel of the Year, and I highly recommend it. I've taken it for many years. I have revisited that material and I have taught it. It's a great class. So we're in that time of equalness at the autumn equinox, and it's not just about balance, right? Even though there's a Libra aspect to it as we move into it, it is about moving towards the dark, moving towards the death tide, right? These are not moral darkness. This is literal darkness, and this is occult or spiritual darkness, the meaning of that hiddenness and what's in your house of that hiddenness, or what's in that space of those places where it is dark. Um, so sort of look at that as a thing. What's been broken down? Where's the light of hope guiding you? Is this voice that's leading you, is it fear or is it joy, right? And sort of have nuance with that, right? Really think about that emotionally for you. It's not just like blanket statements and face value of words, right? It's about the nuance of that. Like opening a thesaurus and finding the right word for you if it's not joy. What is it? Right? What does it really mean for you? And sort of assessment, assessment. Who are the voices of support and hope and joy and expansion and the way forward, right? Who are the good voices of fear, who advise caution in the right spaces, and who are the bad voices of fear that really are just mongering us, swaying us into seeing something dark that they'd like us to see, right? May not be the reality that we need to focus on. Sort of consider that. And see that we're in a collective time in the Northern Hemisphere when this energy is in a cult sense, in a spiritual sense, because this is not just about the falling of leaves. This is about the meaning of the tide as it changes. And this meaning is this equalizing force as it moves towards the dark and death. And how do we approach that? Because each turning of the wheel, we have the opportunity to freshly see a season of our life, even though we're not in that season personally ourselves, because maybe we're young, we have a long time to live, right? 'Cause it's about the meaning. It's about the poetry, right? This is how we engage the wheel, I think, meditatively, not literally. Literally, yes, nature, and also poetry of nature, right? The other aspect of it is there for us. So to sort of see that thing. That's my that's my intro for you. So what cards did I just pull for what was, what is, and what could be? What was? This is the universe in the B tarot. Let's see if I can get. I'm not gonna. Oh, there we can do like that. This is the universe in the B tarot, and this has a lot to do with completion. This is a full cycle. This is the fool has come home to herself or his self. This is being back into understanding that you're at one with the all. That's in the past. That's what was. It's recognizing that we've come full circle in something much more beyond the wheel of the year, that it's a cycle of self that has come to completion. So sort of look back at that. What was completed, right? How does that intersect that tower energy? What does that mean for the star energy moving forward in this time and tide of change, right? Currently, the card that I drew is the Three of Jars. I'm going to put it in front of my face again so you can see it. I really love the bead tarot because it's so expressive in their meanings. This is in that Rider Waite tarot. This is normally that Three of Cups. Um, this is celebrating. This is being with the people who bring you joy. This is sort of sitting in that energy, which, you get a sip and sit a spell and spin a yarn, sort of thing. But it's this togetherness where things are at. So this would be a good indicator to sort of find your tribe, your hive, your folk, and be with them and sort of um, maybe discuss what's been accomplished. Maybe take that assessment if we're at that place of balance, understanding that we're going to move into this darker tide of things. How do we carry that light forward? What does it mean? What does it mean for next? Which leads us toward the what could be card, which I really, really love for this time, especially for myself. And I hope that it has a joyful message for you, which is the Ace of Coins. And I love the B in this one. And I'll put it in my face again so you can see it. Um, this aces represent the primal energy of the element, in which case this is earth. This is talking about planting seeds. This is literally starting something, a seed, an idea for your future, for what's next, right? For what's after. When we see the earth and the pentacle within it, I'd like to remind you also that this is a sign of spirit, right? Because it is the 5 points of the pentacle. It is earth and spirit and air and water and fire. Like that's me drawing a little pentagram, and that way, right? And these elements as a whole represent spirit as much as the pentacle represents earth because it's spirit manifest. When we see that pentacle, it is the end result of a work, right? Materializing into the physical. So I would look in what's completed. I would look in that reverie that you're having with others, over a cup of tea or a cup of wine or whatever it is that you're having. Um, and the joyfulness of that, letting yourself rest. Three of Cups would be a great card to reset the system, nervous system. Like, I'm with friends, like we're sitting in a hot tub, we're under the trees, we're watching our favorite movie, like whatever it is. But this energy is there to help you reassess because, again, when the tower has fallen, it's not to rebuild the same house, it's to build something new. We don't start with the bricks just yet. That Ace of Coins says, what's the seed of this joy? What's the seed of this hope? What's the seed of this idea, this rebirth, this second life, right? What is that? And how do we start to plant that in the world? How do we start to build towards that? That would be your message for the week. The universe, the Three of Jars or Three of Cups, and the Ace of Pentacles. What was, what is, what could be, that kind of Galadriel thing of things. Um, that's where we're at. If you'd like to follow me, I am at starandstonellc.com. You can find me under my name, Scott K. Smith, all over the Instas and socials, or Patreon, where I have these videos posted with deeper detail for subscribers. And yeah, my mostly Saturday service. There are some Saturdays I don't do this. I thank you very much for watching. I hope this reading serves you. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be, and have a lovely day.